Hi everyone, welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online Blueburst. In today's video we're going to continue the episode 2 lore playthrough where we finally get to Gal Da Val Island and find out what's actually going on in the story. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video for PSO Blueburst. So as I mentioned, we're just going to continue the series of the lore playthrough. In the last episode we defeated the gold dragon in VR spaceship and we completed the hunter's exam test. So we're now free to actually find out what the job is that the chief from the lab have for us. So with that said, let's get straight into it. So up to this one, which is 7-1 from the past. Thank you very much, Hunter Taker. We've decided to assign you to a new surface point investigation. There's a solitary island in the ocean south of the central dome. We've named it Gal Da Val Island. Head down to Gal Da Val and there you will begin your investigation. One more thing. We want you to search for somebody. Deputy Commander Heathcliff Flowen. He's one of the military's most famous heroes. He is the one who sent the message we intercepted. So if you remember, at the beginning of episode 2, we were informed that the lab had received a message from someone connected to Pioneer 1. Now, as we know, a lot of tragedy befell Pioneer 1, and we're under the impression that really not many people, if anyone, has survived it. So it's unusual that we're getting a message from someone there. And this guy that we're looking for is this Heathcliff Flowen, who is the Deputy Commander. His death has already been announced to the general public, but we need you to find out whether he's alive and report back. So the first sort of strange thing we've got there is that why would his death have been announced to the public if we're now not sure if he's alive? Was it just that it was premature announcing it? Or are they trying to keep a lot of things under wraps? It's kind of hard to tell at this point. And one more thing. The operator you work with during your hunter's exam has been assigned to be your operator for this new mission. I hope it goes well. As the chief mentioned, Ellie Person will be your official operator for this mission. She'll help you with further details about the mission. She's over there by the operator booth, please go talk to her. Hello there, Taker. The chief went over the basic details of the mission with you, right? According to the data collected by an auto-reconnaissance device, architecture from our civilization, meaning from Pioneer 1, was discovered on Gal Da Val Island. The structures, they're very large, which is unusual since they're so far away from the central dome where most of the residential areas are. So there's already some alarm bells kicking off here because we know the Pioneer 1 settled on Ragol when it first landed, and they obviously constructed the central dome and the residential areas surrounding it. We also know from the events of episode 1 that there was a lot of secretive stuff that was built underneath that. But we're now also finding out that they were also building something like a large-scale complex quite far away from the central dome on an island. So again, it's this distrust of Pioneer 1 kicking in already in episode 2. We really don't know what they were doing on Ragol now. None of the data sent from Pioneer 1 shows any record of this, and there we go, that's exactly what I mean. So Pioneer 1 again are obviously keeping stuff secret from us. Same with the underground mining site on Ragol. So yeah, Ellie has experience of this because you actually go to the underground mines with it in episode 1 and on the side story quests. There must have been a reason that they kept this hidden. Cal will continue with an on-site scan. It's the same communication terminal from the VR field. So cute. Again, Ellie's love of machines to a almost uncomfortable level that's coming out there. I will restate your mission. Investigate and report findings of Gal Da Val Island. Search for Deputy Commander Heathcliff Flowen. That's it. When you collect data during your mission on Gal Da Val, you may transfer them here by accessing Cal on site. So that's basically the whole mission. Okay. Alright, there was one other very vital thing. It looks like the gate to the facility that the probe found is blocked by a gate which is still closed. Cal's hypothesis is the main gate is up because the entire island is on a security alert. Again, why would the island be on a security alert? Given previous experience of Pioneer 1, that doesn't fill me with much confidence at this point. To disable this, find the security locks that are around the island and shut them down. That's what he says. So while checking out the areas on Gal Da Val Island, you'll need to deactivate each security lock that you find. When you're ready, go down the slope, turn right and go through the yellow gate. Then you'll see a teleporter. Good luck. So with that, we go to the actual main area of episode 2, which is where the episode almost starts, to be honest. So we go to what's called the central control area. And as Ellie was saying, there is this huge gate in front of us, which is completely blocked. Transmission from Gal Da Val, serial code confirmed. Access, Hunter-Taker. Yes, this is the lab. Place little information you'd like to retrieve. So do we have anything at this point? Let's see. I'm sorry. The analysis on this data isn't finished yet. And there's no message logs either. So at the moment we've got nothing really to go on. So all we know is that this is an island south of the Central Dome. But it's quite clear that Pioneer 1 have been setting up some quite serious structures on. I mean, if we go to the free cam on Affinia, you can see we've got these huge towers. We've also got, you can see there's quite an extensive development here. There's what looks like a huge, potentially like a huge dam. So maybe they're generating energy for something. We can see there is a lot going on here, and none of this was mentioned by Pioneer 1. So this does raise a lot of suspicion of what exactly Pioneer 1 were doing. Which again, should bring back memories of episode 1. You would think they would learn the lesson, but apparently not. So I've also got this computer here. Security mode is currently active in this area. The main gate has been locked down. You can also search these computers as well, and sometimes these have message logs on them. Establishing main terminal link. Accessing AI Olga database. Initiating search. One item found. Data log download complete. Disconnecting main terminal link. So I believe then if we go back to one of these, we should now have a message log. And that we do. I'm not sure who will be listening to this message, but this message will explain the truth about the planet Rargol. My name is Flowen. Heathcliff Flowen, Deputy Commander of the Pioneer 1 military forces. Our mission, the migration to the planet Rargol, was going well. The environment of our homeworld, Coral, was deteriorating rapidly. This is fantastic at the beginning of episode 2 because it gives you a really good idea of what exactly triggered the Pioneer project in the first place. Again, I do have a video on the Pioneer project if you want to start this playthrough. The very first episode covers that. The Pioneer project was launched to search for a new home. We arrived on Rargol. We began investigating its suitability to support life. We then began readying the planet for habitation. But selecting this planet was a mistake. No, that may have been the plan all along. Rargol. We have awoken it. It was way beyond what we could handle. It was not meant to be discovered. This cursed inheritance from the past. So there's a lot to break down there. So obviously that is our first message from Flowen. So Flowen has, much like Reggie and Rico does in episode 1, he leaves messages for you on Gal Da Val that piece together the story for you. Secondly, he explains a little bit about the Pioneer project. So we now know that it was obviously to escape from Coral, which was deteriorating as a result of several wars, and a lot of the resources on the planet were breaking down. So the Pioneer project was hatched to essentially try and find a new planet to settle down on. However, it's also clear that Flowen knows about it being Dark Falls. So Flowen obviously has some experience of this already. Now again, I don't know where this fits in correlation to the episode 1 storyline. I know that episode 2's events, before we get involved, start before episode 1. But I think now we're probably running maybe adjacent to it. However, Flowen clearly has some previous experience of Dark Falls and knows that there is something on the planet that we shouldn't be awakening. He also suggests that maybe Pioneer 1 were already aware of this, and maybe they knew Dark Falls was on the planet. So this, again, is putting a lot of suspicion on Pioneer 1 and what exactly they were doing in selecting Ragol. Why was Ragol selected in the first place? What you realise quite fast from playing PSO is that you soon discover who the actual true antagonists are of the game. And it almost isn't Dark Falls, it's the Pioneer 1 government. So with that, we've got this warp to Jungle Area North. So this is the jungle, so you can see it's a very sort of lush area, very natural. And there isn't really a whole lot to talk about in this area. There's very, very little man-made elements to it. So although we do have, we've got these gates and there's a few things like laser fences, the amount of sort of man's influence here is quite limited, which suggests that maybe this wasn't part of Gal Da Val that they were focusing on. What you also realise as well is that we're now just getting all completely new enemies as well. So obviously the VR areas were predominantly episode 1 enemies, apart from the bosses. Once we get to this stage in the game, every enemy is new. Again, just a quick reminder, we are going through this in normal, just purely because we just want to go through for the limit, basically. What you'll also notice, if you've been paying attention, is that the enemies are not just from one attribute. So much like the VR areas, there is a good mixture of enemies. So we have the geese, which are these like flying bee enemies. They are native enemies. So these are native to Gal Da Val. We also have these things, Marilias, which are altered beasts. So altered beasts we know are enemies that were mutated. So something has mutated those. Now whether that is, I think the assumption is that maybe that's to do with Durol there as well, because we know that Durol later escaped into the waterways, and potentially we know that this is an island south of the Central Dome, so potentially Durol layer could have got into the water systems here. It's kind of hard to confirm for sure, but it kind of begs the question of where else they would get mutated from otherwise. So see, there is a terminal on that left hand side, so we'll go there next. So essentially what we're doing in episode 2 is we're looking for these terminals and trying to get message logs from them, and that is our main thing at the moment. But also our other objective is obviously to disable the security system on Gal Da Val so we can get access to the central area. So we have another terminal here. So it just says security mode's active in the jungle area, which we know. So let's search it for any logs. So we've got another log. Now unfortunately, we can't actually read the logs from here, as far as I'm aware. So we have to find another one of those terminals. That's one thing I don't really like about episode 2. I feel like once you download the log, you should just be able to read it, rather than having to find one of the terminals for the lab. Just feels a bit arbitrary. It should go without saying, but I feel I need to point out that the music in this game is still absolutely top notch. And I think the central control area theme is honestly one of my favourites in the entire game. I think a lot of people share that opinion as well. It's such a relaxing theme, but also it has this like undertone of like uneasiness, which I really, really like, because it does set the tone very well for this place. Because we are essentially stepping into the complete unknown. I will say, as someone who plays Ultimate most of the time as well, it is refreshing to do episode 2 without everything trying to instant kill you. So in this area we mainly have the Marilias, so maybe this is an area that Dorole got to the water supply of, because there is a higher concentration of these Marilia enemies here. So we do have another message capsule here, so we'll make sure to read that log as well. Ellie speaking. Message log transmission has been confirmed. So when you send a message log, Ellie will also check it as well, and sometimes she'll remark on what's been said in it. Our analysis is complete too. The voice print on the message matches our files. This message was recorded by Mr. Flowen himself. The timestamp indicates that this happened before Pioneer 2 entered orbit around Raggle. So it also means that this happened before the explosion. Since this was recorded before the explosion, we cannot determine if he survived the explosion or not. Obviously makes sense. So we know that Flowen has obviously been here for a while. He clearly came on Pioneer 1, which I believe there was about a 7-year gap between Pioneer 1 and Pioneer 2 arriving. So he could have been potentially on Raggle for 7 years. So we can actually see these now. Can we actually get any information from them though? So at Jungle, I'll explain what we found so far about the creatures here. According to data from the facility, test code level beta subject native creature. That's what they called it, I guess. Botanical mutant life form Marilia and Mariltas. Large numbers of these creatures have been found in Gal Da Val. Males and females of these creatures have been confirmed. The male carries a toxic substance inside its body, so the males are the Mariltas, which are the ones with the yellow heads. I wonder how you can tell which one's a male. I've just told you. These creatures seem to be very timid. They try to hide and run away when found. But don't let your guard down. Mericarol, an advanced form of Marilia and Mariltas, has been found in the jungle area. And next, Mericarol has a large body, or huge body, and has roots to stabilise itself. However, reconnaissance devices have spotted them actually moving. Like the two related creatures, it also contains a factor that can cause abnormal status within its body. And anyone who plays Ultimate mode now knows exactly what that abnormal status is. Multiple species exist. Yeah, the abnormal status in normal hard and very hard, they shoot a projectile that confuses you. They can actually instant kill you in normal hard and very hard. They have this like mist that they can emit, and that will instant kill you. But it's a very long wind up for it. In Ultimate, their shot also instant kills you as well. So do we have anything on the other areas? Because we haven't been to these yet. I'm going to assume that we don't yet. Yeah, so there's nothing on the other areas yet because we don't have access to them. What about the central control part? No, nothing yet. So we have to actually go to them first. So let's also check the message log that we got, because we got another one. Well, I thought we did. I wonder if the message log that we got was the data for the jungle enemies. That makes sense, actually. So, jungle has the weird distinction of being the only area in central control that has 2 areas. For some reason, I have no idea why that's the case. So we're now in the jungle area east. So maybe that's just meant to indicate that the jungle is a much bigger area. This appears to be a little bit more of an open part of the jungle, so the north part that we were in was very enclosed, like almost like in the middle of a jungle canopy. Whereas this part of the jungle seems a little bit more open. You can see there's a bit more daylight coming through. Maybe that indicates that it's a bit closer to the shore, maybe. And we see here, so I was right about being on the coast, so we are very, very close to the coastline. So obviously it's very, very hard to tell where we actually are here. So we know that Gal Da Val is south of the Central Dome, and this is the east part of the jungle. We don't know where the jungle is on Gal Da Val, so it's kind of hard to tell. We can see it's got this very, very unique sort of architecture. Really, we've got these like large pillars of rock coming out of the sea. It's a very, very scenic area, and that goes for a lot of episode 2, honestly. Certainly, it's almost like a nice break after you've been through the VR areas and, you know, the horrors of episode 1. Don't worry, that'll change soon. So there we go. So we do have a mirror Carol now. Yeah, so those guys are absolute menaces in Ultimate. Anyone who's played Ultimate is probably having nightmares now. Crazy thing about these guys in Ultimate, as well as the projectile that they do, is as well as it instant killing you, can't actually resist it with Dark Resist. I think you need about 1,000 Dark Resist to resist it, which is impossible. So again, that confirms what the message said. So that mist there that it did, that is the instant kill mist. I'm actually kind of surprised how many mirror carols there is, to be honest. So I guess maybe this is designed to sort of show you that as scenic as this area is, it is still extremely dangerous. I mean, I suppose we are essentially in the middle of a tropical jungle, you know, which would not be the safest place in the world anyway. But then combined with the fact that we've got these mutants on the loose as well. So as we get to here, you can see we've got a little computer here. This is one of the security locks for the central area. So we'll unlock that. Security lock disabled. So that's the first one done. So there are 3 to unlock, and that is the first one done. Now, can we go in here? Sometimes you can. Yes, you can. Is there anything in here of any use? There's a lot of traps. There's also a Sinnoh barrel somewhere. Behind us, there it is. Sneaky, those guys. And what happens if I try reporting to Dan? Does he just tell me to go to Ellie? So we've got the chief first. You're back safely. The lab is still analysing the data you brought back, but it seems clear that the Pioneer 1 lab was doing something here. Undertaker, the lab is still analysing the data you brought back. Please continue with your investigation. The lab is carrying out a diligent, comprehensive analysis of the data that your hunters have brought back from the target site. We hope that you've performed a sound investigation. Is he kind of calling the accuracy of your data into question there? Kind of sounds like it. So we'll talk to Ellie. Thank you, Taker. Cal is analysing the data from this mission to determine the next step. Please continue your investigation. Yeah, so really not a lot to go on there at the moment. We just know that we are looking for this Heathcliff Flowen. We're also trying to unlock the central area because it's all under lockdown. We don't know why it's under lockdown, but given that there's a lot of mutant enemies and machines on the loose, it kind of brings back memories of the events of episode 1. You know, we have obviously berserk machines, we have these mutants on the loose, we've got aggressive natives, and again, it's very, very similar to what was happening in the different areas of episode 1. So with that, I think we'll go on to the next one. So our next quest is 7-2, Seeking Clues. Thank you for coming, Hunter Taker. After analysing the data you brought back last time, we've decided to do another investigation. Please get the details of the mission from your operator. Thank you. You're just going to tell me to go and see Ellie. Welcome back. Ellie can explain the details of your current mission to you. Yes, it really wants nothing to do with us now. Thanks for coming, Taker. Before restarting this investigation, let me tell you the results of the data analysis and the samples you brought back last time. Cal looked into it and he says it's possible to get into that jungle from another area. Also, not all of the island's security locks have been deactivated. You'll probably have to turn them all off to get to that next area. So he says, that's the final result of the current data analysis. When you're ready, go down the slope, turn right and through the yellow gate, and you'll see a teleporter. Good luck. So we're going back to Gal Da Val, but this time we're going to a different part of Gal Da Val. And the idea again is just look for any evidence of Flowen, any evidence of the switches to unlock the central area. So we're actually going into jungle again at the moment. What I said though is that it's a different area of jungle. So this time we've started in Jungle East. So maybe this is meant to be like a different part of the jungle from the last quest. Again, we'll just have a quick look around, just make sure we're not missing anything. Can you by any chance break this up? You can. So the impression I'm getting is that we're basically doing jungle backwards here. Interestingly, when you get to this point, the lighting here noticeably changes. I'm not actually sure what the significance of that is really. It obviously does it before that Mericaro spawns, but we fought a load of Mericaros in the last one and it didn't do that. So I'm really not sure what the significance of that is meant to be. So continue working through. It looks like we do have another terminal here, so we'll access this. So we did get something from that. So that will be, I would assume that's maybe a message from Flowen because we've already got the data on the enemies for jungle. Yeah, that is just another way of looping round, so we can go to the next jungle area. So this actually takes us into a new part of central control area, which is the mountain. And we have another terminal here straight away. So we are getting a few records from this. So next time we get a terminal from Ellie, there should be a couple of things to check. So mountain, obviously a very different looking area. And mountain is predominantly populated by these gibbons. So what you'll notice is we'll see more of these gibbons than anything else. Whereas the jungle was more focused on the Morelias. So we do have a terminal here, so let's check those entries we got. So I'm going to assume maybe we got the analysis for mountain. Yep. So I'll explain the creature data that has been uncovered so far. According to data from the facility, test code level alpha subject native creature. Interestingly, what you might notice is all the entries so far for the enemies have been referred to as test codes. So does this mean that they were being experimented on or monitored. Our reconnaissance devices have confirmed it as gibbon. They're known to travel in packs. When surrounded by them, running for your life is highly recommended. These have been found in all areas of Gal Da Val. However, pack leaders have only been found in the mountain area. Leaders are the same species as the gibbons, but we have named them gibbles. Gibbles are much larger in size and have superb jumping ability. They've destroyed reconnaissance devices placed way up in the sky. It's been speculated that these are very ferocious creatures, so please be careful. So next we'll check the message logs, and we do have a second message log from Flowen, assuming. The first time I encountered it, that was when we were well into the excavation process of the ancient spaceship. So interestingly, Flowen knows that it was a spaceship. He's obviously referring to the ruins from episode 1. We were researching the remains of an ancient civilization on Ragal to find technology that could help advance our science. That was our mission. At least I was led to believe that was our mission. While terraforming and construction of the central dome proceeded on the surface, the excavation project continued in secret. So this just confirms what we kind of picked up from episode 1, in that everything that was going on underneath the central dome was all done completely out of the public eye and completely kept secret. No one could have imagined the huge project going on right under them. After long hours of hard labour, the excavation team finally made it into the interior of the ancient spaceship. And the fact, I know he's probably mentioned hard labour as in just it was hard work, but there was also a hint in episode 1 that perhaps they were potentially using people as slaves for the work as well. Because it was noted by, there's one of the messages in episode 1 where it mentioned that the amount of resources being used on Pioneer 1 during travel was much higher than expected, particularly things like food. So that sort of hinted that maybe there was extra people on board that weren't reported. So, I don't know, maybe potential slave labour. Again, it's hard to sort of confirm it, but it does sort of hint at that. But the celebration ended shortly after. We encountered it. Everyone on the excavation team died. No one has ever made it back from the ancient spaceship since then. We were finally able to confirm the existence of a hostile life form. With this knowledge, we created an attack plan to remove the creature. And that clearly went well. I will never forget. It crawled up from a vast abyss of darkness. It appeared to be mutating as it moved towards us. It looked like its body was cycling through the stages of life and death. The force under my command was completely demolished. I managed to escape, but I was badly injured. My wounds move as if somehow alive. I'd almost believe that my wounds were consuming my body to take control. And again, anyone who knows Phantasy Star lore and knows what happened in episode 1 now probably knows already what's going to happen. So it's clear that Flowen is very, very troubled about it. So Dark Falls. It's clear that he's had this run-in with Falls previously and lost his entire team. He himself was very badly injured. And it's very interesting that he mentions that his wounds move as if they were somehow alive. So it's clear that maybe False has some kind of infectious property to it, where if you are wounded by it, maybe it starts to take over you. It's kind of hard to tell, but these little pieces of information that Flowen's giving us could also give us an idea of what exactly happened to Red Ring Rico. Obviously, we know that Rico was essentially absorbed by False, but this could give us a little bit of an idea of what actually happened to her. So as I mentioned, this is kind of where a lot of the episode 2 story starts to come together and becomes a lot more interesting. I would actually say that as much as I love episode 1, I actually feel like the story of episode 2 might actually be stronger for me. It does get really crazy later on. And this is Gibble, so this is the pack leader of the Gibbons. Which basically just jumps at you a lot and tries punching you. There isn't really a whole lot to Gibbles, honestly. Again, though, it is clear that a lot of the native enemies here are aggressive. Now, whether they're just naturally aggressive or whether this is caused by something like with episode 1, again, at this stage, we don't really know. What is clear at this point, though, is that the game is very keen on reminding us about Dark Falls. You know, obviously, a lot of Flowen's messages have been very focused on it, and that is partly just to fill in some of the lore about Falls, but you do kind of wonder at this point, why are you making such a point about telling me this? From like a game standpoint, like, why are you telling me about something from episode 1 constantly? And you get to the point where you kind of feel that there must be a reason why they're doing this. So we do need to get this laser fence. We will come back for that switch in a moment, because we need to go back up here to get the security gate. So that is the security lock disabled in the mountain area. So that is now 2 out of 3. You can see there's a ton of these stealth traps on the ground. I don't know how well they're visible in the video, but they're there, believe me. So we'll search this to see if we get any more logs. So we do get a log there. So what I'm actually going to do... Would this just take us back to the lab? Yes, it would. So what I'm going to do, instead of going back to the lab, I'm going to actually go and find one of those terminals again. Okay, so we'll go back to one of these terminals just so we can see what that last log was. Message log transmission has been confirmed. Our analysis is finished too. So this will be her referring to the previous one. There's one thing that bothers me. In the message, it mentions that it appeared in the ancient spaceship. I wonder if this is referring to the decellular sublife forms. Or maybe... So that's like a hint. So does Ellie know about Dark Falls? Bear in mind she's got access to Cal, who is a very powerful AI. Does this mean that she knows more than she's letting on? So let's go back in the message logs again. So we do have a third message from Flowen as well. D-type factor. That's what Ostor said when he saw this wound. Ostor should be a name that is somewhat familiar if you've played through the events of episode 1, particularly the side story. Ostor is a famous scientist from Pioneer 1. And you'll probably know his name because there is a quest called Dr. Ostor's Research. He's also quite involved with the events that led to Durrell escaping as well. He could barely contain his glee at finding this unknown life form. What you'll find out quite fast is that Dr. Ostor is a right piece of work. Then he said to me, "Would you consider donating your body to the government for the good of our people?" And I thought, if my body could serve to build a better future for our people. So I agreed to accept the request under certain conditions. Ostor was overjoyed, and he said to me, "Your body will be the subject of an official government experiment." What he meant was, I would have no say in what happened to my body. For all intents and purposes, my life was over. The government will send a message to your friends and family back home to announce your death. So this is why his death was announced. Basically, the government sent the message to everyone to let his friends and family know that he died because they didn't want them to know what was actually happening to Flowen. That's what he said. However, as we'll discover, even after accepting the fate of donating my body, I thought about it. The young girl who followed me to explore this unknown world. Interesting. She always looked up to me as a hero, even though I was just an old man. What will she think about my death when she finds out? Everyone will eventually forget about me. My death was announced to the world, and I was transferred here. Maybe that was the beginning of the end. This disaster. This decision I made to donate my body could trigger the chain reaction that will uncover the truth of the planet Rygol. So, Flowen obviously donates his body to science essentially, because he is, as far as I'm aware, he is the only person who has survived a run-in with faults. Well, he's obviously been wounded from it, so they want to study him to see what this wound is, and he's been told that it's something called a D-type factor infection. So faults clearly does have some kind of infectious property that infects anyone that gets injured by it, which then I guess starts the mutation process. So Flowen is basically being studied as basically a medical experiment now, and his life, as he said, is now essentially over. His death has been announced to his friends and family, or so he thinks. We'll get onto that later. He also mentions a young girl who looks up to him as a hero. Now, it shouldn't be any great surprise at this point, but the young girl who looked up to him as a hero is Red and Rico. And the reason you can put that together is because there are several little hints in the game that connect Flowen and Rico. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the lab. We'll hand this in, but just before I hand this in, I'll show you what I mean about these little hints. So if we go to this, for example, this red slicer, you can see the description of it says, this red slicer is a prototype, so its finish is incomplete. Letters which say CL are carved on the grip. Similarly, if you go to a red saber, it's more or less the same description, but it says HE is carved on the hilt. The little Easter egg with these is that if you collect all of the red weapons and you put them all together, the letters all spell out the word Heathcliff, which is obviously Flowen's first name. Now, it's thought the prevailing idea is that the red weapons are maybe thought of as maybe Flowen gifted them to Red Ring Rico. So there is obviously things that tie them together. But their fates, as you'll find out later, are very much intertwined. So what we'll do is we'll hand this into the chief. Glad to see that you made it back safe and sound. After looking at the data that you brought back, it's clear that the Pioneer 1 lab was up to something here. Alright, but we haven't been able to determine exactly what. And then there was those messages left by Heathcliff Flowen. So Natasha is obviously a bit troubled about those messages. We here at the lab are really quite satisfied with the data readings that you brought back. Maybe the chief has overlooked something. I think that it was very good for her to have gotten your help. And lastly, we'll report to Ellie. Thank you, Taker. Cal is analysing the data from this mission to determine the next step. Please continue your investigation. And that brings us to the end of that quest. So we'll end that one there for today. In the next episode, we will go to the next area of Central Control and then into Central Control area proper. And we'll try and figure out what exactly was going on with Flowen, how he links to Red Ring Rico, and what exactly the Pioneer 1 government was up to in episode 2. So hope you're enjoying the series so far. If you have, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, join as a member if you want to. We stream on a weekend normally on a Sunday. And this Sunday, at the time of recording, I'm actually going to be doing a multi-stream on YouTube and Twitch, so feel free to join us there on either. My Twitch is at Section Skylight. You can also follow me on Twitter at Section Skylight, and we also have a Discord that you can join, which I'll leave a link to in the description as well. Yeah, hope you're enjoying the series, and I'll see you guys in the next one.